The views and opinions expressed by the individuals in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of its producers, Metaphor Creative Media, its management, or affiliates.
As police officers, we're witness to some of the most amazing things in life. Some comical, some horrendous, and some just plain miraculous. When asked why you went into law enforcement, most officers will tell you, because it's like having a front row seat to the greatest show on earth. Today, we saved you a front row seat. This is Cobservations.
From Broadcast Beat Studios in Oakland Park, Florida, Metaphor Creative Media presents a show that gives you a personal glimpse of what law enforcement officers see and do in their typical and not so typical day of work. From walking the beat to detective, Rob has 35 years of law enforcement experience. Although the staff are all active or former law enforcement, any views, opinions, and all other show content are in no way official views, statements, or policies of any law enforcement agency. To talk to our host, call the podcast studio toll-free at 888-511-COPS. That's 888-511-2677.
Hello again and welcome to Cobservations, your front row seat to the greatest show on earth. I'm your host, Rob Lerner, along with my co-host, Gary Dickinson. Gary, nice to see you back again.
Yeah, nice to be back, buddy.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, we didn't have a show last week. There was a previous engagement here at the studio, but we're back tonight live and better than ever. I'll let you know, Cobservations is broadcast live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. from the Broadcast Beat Studios located in Oakland Park, Florida. If you have any questions, comments, or a story you'd like to share, join in on the conversation by giving the podcast studio a call at 888-511-COPS. That's 888-511-2677. You can also instant message your questions and comments live on our Facebook page. Here on Cobservations, we attempt to give you a personal glimpse of what law enforcement officers go through on a daily basis. We also talk about recent events, happenings, and the latest hot topics pertaining to law enforcement that affect not only the officers, but also you, the general public. In the previous editions of Cobservations, we've discussed the dangers of police work, which everybody knows is obviously it's dangerous, especially when it comes to car stops, vehicle pursuits, and domestic violence calls. We've discussed active shooters, the attacks on police officers, and unfortunately, police suicides. We've informed you of recent scams and tips to avoid becoming a victim to one, and also the preparations and sacrifices first responders make when facing a potential catastrophic event. And on our last edition, we discussed 9/11. But police work is not all doom and gloom, so tonight we're changing it up and we'll talk about the lighter side of policing. So if you have a story to share, and I know you do, guys, there are a million stories out there and we love to tell them, give us a call at 888-511-COPS. Before we get to tonight's topics, I'd like to discuss some recent law enforcement-related incidents in the news. The threats of active shooters are still occurring. In Florida, there were 2 students arrested for plotting a school massacre at their middle school. Another story in the news, this isn't a first, but the couple had sex in a patrol car after their arrest. And thirdly, there was a fallen cop's miracle child, ineligible for survivor benefits. That was a New York City police officer. He and his partner were assassinated a while ago, and they're trying to deny benefits for the baby. Joining us tonight is retired Detective Sergeant Henry Mackey of the North Palm Beach Police Department, who has had a very distinguished law enforcement career. Henry, thank you for joining us tonight, and welcome to Cobservations.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Pleasure to have you here. And would you mind telling us a little bit about your career?
Well, when you look back at your career, it's hard to put it in a clear focus because so much went on. But basically, I spent 27 years at North Palm Beach, did everything there in a small department. I even helped bring Gary in when he worked for North Palm Beach.
Yes, Gary enjoyed a very short retirement
Well,
when he left our agency. And
About 8 hours worth.
yeah, that's probably a record.
well, he just had to come to a real department to square himself away. So we were proud to accomplish that for you.
Sergeant Mackey squared me away too, pal.
That's right. That's right. Do those trip sheets.
Yep.
But so I 27 years there, and then I had short retirement, and I have fallen into some very interesting things in my second life, I guess.
And what type of assignments were you in?
Well, I started with road patrol, and then I went early on into detective. I think investigation is my forte. There's a certain art and a science to investigation that if you're called to that, you bring everything to bear on it. So 1990 was my first homicide case, and as we'll talk about later, just last week we got a DNA CODIS hit from the state of Michigan that identified the suspect in that 1990 case. So I stood in an apartment with a dead guy in it in 1990, and just last week we got the guy's name who was the suspect.
It's amazing. We did an episode a while ago with the advances of policing, and back in the day, the DNA, although they were collecting it, we weren't really utilizing it. And now it's amazing the cases that are actually being solved so many years later.
Well, that's what I'm going through now. In the eyes of 2019, the state attorney's going, well, did you swab this for I didn't have a DNA swab kit. How many pictures did you take? Well, I was using Polaroids, so my sergeant would be on me. I took too many pictures. Can you imagine a crime scene where the insult is you took too many pictures? Yeah. It's just amazing. So they're looking at 2019 eyes of a 1990 investigation. So it's certainly challenging.
You're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Right.
Okay. Before we get to these stories, I want to remind you that if you have a question or a comment about tonight's topics, we definitely encourage you to join the conversation and give us a call at 888-511-COPS. That's 888-511-2677. Don't forget, you can also instant message your questions and comments live on our Facebook page. First story tonight involves two Florida students that were arrested for plotting a massacre at their middle school. And this is as Florida cracks down on the It's No Joke campaign. You have a lot of these kids making these posts online, and as a joke, they think it's funny. But unfortunately, with everything that's happened today, they're taken very seriously. Osceola County Sheriff's Major Jacob Ruiz, who I had the pleasure of meeting a few weeks ago when my ex-boss, my former boss, retired. It happens to be his cousin. Said last Monday that the arrest came after other students were told they were on a safe list. Yeah, remember the movie Billy Madison? Did you see that movie?
I don't think I saw that one.
There was a scene there where one of the characters had a list of people to kill. I guess this kid had people that were safe. These kids had their safe list.
Isn't that nice of him?
Yeah, at least it had to make you feel better.
I'm going to kill this guy, but you're okay. Don't worry.
You're okay. You're safe. You two are safe.
I'm buying him lunch today.
I always said that's why I guess there are certain people that I give candy bars just to
Sure.
stay on the good side.
Yeah.
I want to ensure I have a 20-minute head start.
We're pals, right?
Exactly. The Orlando Sentinel reported that the students had a list of students they planned to stab. Ruiz says the students admitted to creating the list, but said it was a joke. It's a no joke awareness campaign was launched 2 Tuesdays ago, so they're taking it very, very seriously. And we had another case also in Palm Beach County. A juvenile male suspect was arrested for making social media threat on Snapchat against 2 schools, the Bach Middle School and the Roosevelt School. My daughter went to the Bach Middle School. So it was almost like a personal thing, but the students claimed it was a hoax. They were arrested by the school resource officer without incident.
It won't be long that they're going to remand one of these kids over as an adult and try him in adult court if they're close to 16. And then it won't be funny anymore.
Well, I've always had a personal opinion in that with the juveniles, where I think we're a little too lax in the punishment. First-time offense, slap on the wrist. Absolutely. You give them a warning, you educate them. The second time there's a second offense, it should get a little harsher. You have these repeat offenders, and that's what the problem is. The juveniles commit crimes, and they get away with it, and they get away with it, and it emboldens them. And
Well, the approach has to change as the problem changes. So if you're using 10-year-old or 15-year-old approach to a new problem, so it's always got to change, and you've got to deal with it, or it's going to expand out of control. So whatever you do, you got to have a plan.
absolutely.
I mean, look what happened in Parkland with that suspect that did that mass killing there. They have multiple. The school knew over and over and over that he did and said all this terrible stuff, and they just let it go.
No, there comes a point that you have to take enforcement action.
It's the interface between mental health and law enforcement, and it's always been a real tough ground to walk. And you'll hear 1,000 different opinions when you can Baker Act somebody, when you can't, and all that kind of stuff. So that's the ground between mental health and law enforcement.
Yeah, and the thing is too, you get back to these kids that repeatedly commit crimes. And I'm sure we all have stories with the amount of time we've been in law enforcement. But I remember back in New York, there was one particular kid that over and over again, his crime, it progressed. He got more violent, and got to the point we said, he's going to kill somebody one day. And he did. We all saw it happening, but unfortunately the judicial system was like, all right, give him another break, and it just continued. This kid who posted had a picture of a handgun with the caption that read, "I got the gun, I'm about to blow Roosevelt and Bach up," investigators said. And what they want people
Well, that was just a metaphor.
Yeah, it was probably taken out of context.
It was
context.
It was a fantasy he was creating that for his school project. It wasn't really a threat.
He was trying to get a reaction. Wants to see what
Yeah,
would
well, he
happen.
got one, didn't he?
He sure did. He said, we want young people in Florida to understand that in today's environment, every threat is taken very seriously, and even if made in jest, can lead to devastating consequences.
Absolutely.
And there's absolutely nothing funny about making a school threat or being charged with a felony as a child. They want young people to think twice before casually threatening violence at their schools.
Well, it's a change of culture. It's a change of attitude. The teachers have to be involved. The principals, all those people have to be on the same sheet of music. That's a good start, because if it's no joke, then it's going to be, that attitude is going to be projected to everybody. So,
and when it gets reported to the parents have to take it seriously too. A lot of them have, he didn't mean it. He's just a kid.
Just a kid. Yeah.
let's protect them. Yeah, I hear you.
It's rough. I have a sister who's a teacher, and some of the stories that she comes back with, it's mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
Our second story tonight happened in Fernandina Beach, Florida. Authorities say a man and a woman who were stopped for drunken bicycling in a Florida beach town had sex in the deputy's patrol car before one of them fled naked.
Imagine the circumstances involved for that chain of events to happen. The door was open in the back, and they fell in, or I can't imagine.
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
Well,
Hey, it didn't hurt him, but it did her so much good. So
yeah, pretty.
till he got arrested.
We all know those cars. There's not a lot of room in the back.
No.
They must have been two very thin people, I think.
And what I would hope, for the officer's sake, I hope he didn't have cloth seats. I hope they were the hard plastic seats or vinyl seats. Deputies arrested Aaron Thomas and Megan Mondanero, who were both facing charges of resisting arrest with violence, committing lascivious act, and exposing sexual organs. What happened was the Florida Times reported that a deputy was patrolling the beach when he spotted the bicyclist almost get hit by a car. An arrest report says that they were put in the squad car to await being taken to jail, and while doing so, they decided to take off their clothes and have sex.
Well, it would imply there that they were not handcuffed, because if they did that while they were handcuffed, that's a show I've almost
I
wanted
think,
to
I
see.
think they
talent.
slipped the cuffs.
It's talent.
I think they were, they were addicts, so they were skinny, and I'm sure they were slipped the cuffs out from
Well,
behind them.
That might be in the report.
Maybe.
It says a naked Thomas was removed from
It would have been in
cruiser.
mine, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. They removed him from the cruiser, but he fled. And I know.
Well, there's another interesting. He just ran away.
Well, look, I don't know about you, but there have been times in my career when, I had to deal with a naked male, and you had to be very strategically how you went hands-on. It was because you didn't want to get hit with anything you didn't want touching you.
That's very true.
Yeah.
But I don't know how a person just leaves your custody. See ya.
Yes. You have
I've had enough here.
Have a nice day.
I've had my fun in the back seat. I'll be on my way
maybe
now,
he was
sir.
finished, so.
Officer, I'll be on my way, sir.
Yeah, they didn't say how long they were actually back there, so who knows? And this other case in Brooklyn, there was a New York State senator looking to change the state's law after the 2-year-old daughter of a fallen officer was denied survivor benefits twice. According to PIX 11, although Angelina Liu is Detective Wayne G. and Liu's biological daughter, she doesn't qualify for survivor benefits because of how she was born. Wen Jian Liu, along with Officer Rafael Ramos, was shot and killed in an ambush attack in December 2014 as they were seated in their patrol car. They were actually assassinated. They really didn't know what happened. Angelina was born in July 2017, nearly 3 years later, through in vitro fertilization. The detective's sperm was collected by emergency room doctors in the final moments of his life because they were planning to have a family, and this was her only chance. The only chance, and unfortunately, because of the way she was born, they're denying survivor benefits, and the senator's trying to have things changed. Hopefully, in the future, they'll be able to do something for this family because it's deserved.
Without a doubt.
Yeah,
This is where this is where bureaucrats that make these decisions based on their civil service laws or whatever, in a situation like this. Now, you would think that if it was me, and say me and you, Henry and I would sit together and we would say, listen, if we try to deny this kid, we're going to lose this. And do you know what the public's going to say if we deny this kid these benefits? Yeah? Well, why don't we just give them to her because it'll be cheaper than fighting this thing?
well, but there's a big problem because they tried to suspend the 9/11 benefits.
Yeah.
That it was, until Detective Luis Alvarez came forward and all these
What
other
a hero.
detectives.
To see
Absolutely.
that man's face, he was a portrait in suffering, and he was there at that hearing. When I saw his face, I just can't believe. They should have stood up and said, whatever this man wants, whatever it is, we will make it, get it done.
There's somebody I work with in New York, this Dennis Murphy, who is a 9/11 survivor, for now. And he's also very outspoken, and it was there for the signing. He was there with Luis Alvarez. And Dennis was larger than life. He was just one of those guys. When I think of Dennis, the only thing what I remember, he had this laugh that came from his toes. And I believe, last I heard, he's already gone through like 60 bouts of chemotherapy, and it's just spread throughout the body. But he's a fighter and a hero, and I pray to God that he's all right.
Stand up and support those heroes. That's what just people need to do. Just stand up and support those heroes.
Yeah, and the sad thing with this case with the survivor benefits for this detective's daughters, if he had signed the consent form 7 months earlier.
It's always some piece of paper. We'd have this all done for you, but Form 12 over here wasn't signed on time, so no benefits. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's horrendous. Like I said, these guys were assassinated.
Yeah.
It wasn't as though they were responding to a job in progress. They were just sitting in the car, and
While they were serving the public.
Right.
They were helping the public, serving the public. Let's reciprocate a little bit.
Yeah, it's just it was horrible. Okay, I'd like to remind everybody that Cobservation is broadcast live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Cobservation's Facebook page and the Cobservation's YouTube channel. Don't forget, you can join the conversation by giving the podcast studio a call toll-free at 888-511-COPS. That's 2677. You can also instant message your questions and comments to the Cobservation's Facebook page. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll discuss the lighter side of policing. Guys, I know you've got stories. We encourage you to call and join and get in on the conversation. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be back shortly.
If you or someone you know would like to appear as a guest on the show, you can book your appearance on the Cobservations Facebook page, or you can email the show directly at cobservations@yahoo.com.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all. If I could go back, I would. But I can't.
Awkward. Do I look familiar? I should. You might remember me from here. Here. Or maybe even here.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
It can actually be a perfect moment to reach out to a friend and ask if they're okay if they seem down.
It doesn't matter how you say it.
You all right?
Everything's okay?
All G?
You all right, girl?
You cool?
You bugging dog.
Just show you're there for them.
Go on, Kelly. Seize the awkward.
Hey, you haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org. How to know if you should reach out to a friend. Your friend might be.
To talk to our host, call the podcast studio toll-free at 888-511-COPS. That's 888-511-2677. Now back to our host.
Here we go.
Okay, sports fans, we're back. Welcome back to Observations. We're here with our guest, retired Detective Sergeant Henry Mackey. We're going to get to tonight's topic, the lighter side of policing, in just a few minutes. But first, Henry, I know you've been involved in many investigations throughout the years and were called out of retirement for one in particular that dates back to 1990.
Correct.
Would you mind discussing that with us?
Oh, not at all. Like I said, 1990, it was my first homicide, and it was an elderly gentleman stabbed to death in his chair in his condo, in his North Palm Beach condo. And we worked it to 1990 standards, and then the case went to the sheriff's office, cold case. With a small agency, you have a new chief that comes in pretty regularly. Bigger agencies, maybe your sheriff stays longer, but but smaller agencies, and when you get a new chief, all your procedures or priorities, but number one on the last guy is number 10 on this guy. So this case was handed off to PBSO cold case, and they worked on it for a while, and then our Chief Jenkins, came and took it back. So the case has been moved around, and in last year, November of 2018, Captain D'Alessandro of our police department started a cold case investigation squad. And let me tell you, Captain D'Alessandro is the modern face of police management. She has done a fantastic job. So she formed this, and I put in the structure, and I started it up and kind of got it going. And we called in Greg Parkinson, who's like a crime scene expert up in Palm Beach County. I don't know if you all know his name or not, but he's kind of, and asked him to give us some advice and give us direction. So we had one piece of DNA that we've been told for all this time that it's not workable, it's old, it's corrupt, or whatever these terms were. I think they make them up half the time. Yeah, it's in column B, not column A. So he suggested that we go and meet with the PBSO crime lab. We go as a group and meet with them and ask our questions, and that was the greatest advice. And we went there, and they decided there might be some other techniques. And like I said before, just about 2 weeks ago, we got a CODIS hit for a suspect in Michigan. And we were saying earlier about this long criminal history. This guy's been in and out of prison his entire life. He came down to Palm Beach County for 2 months and committed at least one murder that we know about. I was in Boca Raton on Tuesday. I met with the state attorney homicide section on Tuesday. And then we went to Boca Raton, where we talked about a dismembered body case. And what we found out there is in the 1990s, there were lots of dismembered bodies found, but there was never really a task force formed for that. And that was kind of a shock to me that we would have these dismembered bodies, found different vacation.
Right, it reeks of serial killer.
It-
Yeah, serial killer.
Well, I don't want to be gruesome with this, but there's a methodology into dismembering a body. And once a person does it one way, they're going to stick to their method and techniques and how to do it.
Well, they
next
say
thing.
if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Well, so, I'm looking at these marks and how it was done and the techniques and all this kind of stuff, and I'm going, this seems kind of familiar here. Should you guys take a look at this? So it's just a fascinating situation to be in 2019 after all this time, and bringing somebody, I think I said 100 times, bringing somebody to justice. But the concept of the cold case squad, and we started from scratch. We formed our own techniques, and I just want to give a shout out to my brothers and sisters at North Palm and the ones on my cold case homicide, Sweet Lou, Captain D'Alessandro, Yesenia, my old Uncle Sal, who's been just the soldier through the whole thing. So by group, I used to be a lone wolf. I would do it myself, but I've learned the hard way over time that it's the team approach. It's always a team approach. If you're in a patrol car, if you're whatever you're doing, it's a team approach. And when you do it solely and a lone wolf, you're going to be wrong.
Yeah, and as I say, there's no I in team. Right? There's no I in team.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time. I have a hard head. It took me a long time to figure that out.
Years ago I worked with a guy and they called him the lone wolf because
Right.
he worked alone.
Right.
But he worked alone for other reasons. He couldn't work with anybody else.
You do have that.
Yeah, and he was something else. He was a real old timer, and he wasn't. I remember I was a rookie. He wasn't allowed to drive a police car. I don't know what the reason was, but we used to drive him to his foot post, and he would sit
His
behind
name
you.
wasn't Dandridge, was it?
No, it wasn't. This is Johnny. This is,
Thanks, Gary.
yeah, this is Johnny I, the lone wolf, and I remember he'd sit behind you and he'd punch you. And the guy had hands like baseball gloves, and you didn't want to tell him to stop because you were afraid he'd hit you harder. You couldn't get him out of the car fast enough.
I came into law enforcement in '87. So those guys that were around in the 70s, that's a whole different ballgame. It's a whole different ball. And what was done and accepted and routine.
Well,
Are you talking about me?
Oh.
Is that-
I didn't slip your name in, did I?
just to go back, that Johnny I had come in, I believe, on the 50s. And if any of my friends from New York are listening to the story, know the name. The stories about him were legendary. But there was one story that I'd always heard that he and his partner were in the locker room and they used to draw down on each other.
What could go wrong there?
To see who was faster. And on this one particular day, his partner actually shot him. Back
Might
then,
happen.
like you said, back then it was a different
Right.
world. Nobody was arrested. Nobody lost their job. But when they interviewed the partner and they asked him what happened, he said, why'd you shoot him? His response was, because I knew if I didn't shoot him, he was going to shoot me. Well, now, fast forward years later. I heard this story back in the 80s. Fast forward now, I'm working at the Fort Lauderdale airport, and I'm at a checkpoint, and this older gentleman comes walking through, and he's got an NYPD hat on. So I said to him, where'd you work? He says, NYPD? I said, duh. I see that, but where'd you work? He said, the 6-0, which was Coney Island, where I worked, and he was an old-timer. He worked, and I happened to mention Johnny I. I said, you know him? He said, yeah. I said, let me ask you a question. I heard this story. Is it true? He said, yeah, absolutely. So it was
It's great to be able to go back and fact check. Catch a guy later and go, hey, I heard this story once.
Yeah, and this was somebody that I didn't know, and I was like, oh, wow. Henry, as I ask all our guests,
Sure.
What did you do prior to getting into law enforcement?
Oh, man. I took all the wrong routes. I got a degree from Florida State in social work, which turns out to be the most helpful degree you could ever have in police work, because you know a little psychology, a little sociology, everything. But then I went in the military as an enlisted man, so I didn't know any better. And went to airborne. I was stationed in Europe in the first of the 509th. Anybody knows the 509th out there in Vicenza, Italy. And that was kind of like the post where they sent people, the malcontents or something, I think.
Okay. It's like sending somebody in New York to the Bronx.
Exactly. It was the middle of nowhere. It was quite a challenge. And then when I came back, I didn't know what to do. I had no idea. So a friend of mine worked at North Palm, and he said, why don't you, apply over here? And I said, well, why not? And I discovered that a lot of the skills that I had were with police work. It meshed completely. So I didn't know anything about a police car. The first time I got in one, all these knobs and lights, and at nighttime, how do you operate all this stuff? FTO's writing in a little book next to me. He doesn't know how to drive a police car. So I go, this is my first time. He doesn't know how to drive a police car. Check this. So, I worked through that. But my heart was always with investigation, and I worked through that. And then we had a series of chiefs, and I moved into being like the senior sergeant. And I just couldn't move up into the officer class, with the lieutenant and captain. I always like Gary and I were just talking. I always like the night shift. Night shift is you have to have an edge. You have to be smart. You have to know what's going. You have to read people. You have to know what to do, and in a challenging environment. And I always like that. So Gary and I worked, I think, nights together primarily.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Were you back on doing midnights?
Yeah.
It's funny. We always said, and everybody
For an
said
old
it,
timer like me to get back on.
And you were
but
able
I
to
loved working with him, and that made it. The
And you were able to stay up?
Well, I kept him up.
Not all the time.
I'd have to go and check on him,
Not going to make sure you're still breathing.
I remember being in a convenience store with the squad, telling stories, and I looked at my clock, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, I said, "What the hell am I doing here?" Man.
Well, that's where all these stories come from. Between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., you'll do anything to stay awake. I mean, your body's shutting down, your brain's shutting down, your blood is like molasses or something. So you talk to each other, and you tell stories, and you confess to each other. You tell your partner stuff you don't even tell your wife.
Well, you tell your partner stuff you couldn't tell your wife.
Maybe that's the reason.
And it was so true that anybody that was out on the street after a certain time, 9 out of 10 times was up to no good.
Yeah.
Well, I told Gary when so they got me off of nights, and the chief arm locks me and puts me on days. He needs my help, or he needs my help. And at night shift, you tell a guy, stay right there. And as soon as you move your head, boom, he's gone, right? I'm on day shift, and I go to domestic, and I tell this lady, stand by my police car, right? And I go upstairs. I forget she's there. An hour later, I come back, she's still standing there, right? That's day shift.
Absolutely.
And they're calling you
different.
sir, and, I hope you don't mind that you stood there for an hour in the sun. Oh, no problem, officer,
Yeah.
It's a difference. So I like the nights, and I moved on up, and I did a lot of interesting things, and but you get to that point, 27 years, do I do a couple more, and so I called it quits at 27.
When it's time. What did you like the best about law enforcement?
Well, I always like the challenge. Like a crime scene is a challenge. You got to look at it, you got to understand it. A lot of people don't know how to look at a crime scene, absorb all the information that it's given you. And when I would train a new person in a crime scene, I'd say, let's just stand here in the doorway and tell me what you see. They didn't see anything. And then I'd point out, well, the light's on or light's off, or the bed made or unmade. And then they'd start seeing things, So I like the challenge. And then also I like the challenge of dealing with people. Because there's a lot of talk about, cops, unprofessional conduct and stuff like that. And I think if you develop a standard way of treating people with respect and knowing how to talk to people, that you can get through 99%. There's going to be that 1% that all you can do is put them down on the ground and handcuff them and throw them in the car. But the rest of the people, I think you can work with them.
I swear by that, and I tell everybody, I said, you set the tone. 9 out of 10 times, the police officer will set the tone on how he approaches somebody. When I was coming up, one of my training officers, who I was blessed to have as a training officer, and I've said it on another episode, treated everybody. It didn't matter what your station in life was. Everybody got the same respect.
Exactly.
And there's something I say, hey, excuse my language. I'm going to say excuse my language right now. But when you start over with, hey, asshole.
Exactly.
It's very hard to go back to excuse me, sir. If you get to that point, if you have to get to that point, you can. But you set the tone with how you approach people. Be fair, be firm, and be respectful.
But you know what the real key there is starting out with, excuse me, sir, and then, hey, asshole, because he turns into one, and then getting back to, yes, sir, and no, sir, and the guy apologizes to you and thanks you for taking him to jail. That's when you know you have arrived.
That's because Gary has the master class. He knows how to turn that guy into a thankful arrestee at the end. He has that magic touch that the guy is thanking him for changing his life.
I had a sovereign citizen. A sovereign citizen.
Oh, yeah.
Thanked me for arresting him.
Oh, that's a rarity.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And then Henry and I, when we were on nights together, we had this thing. We had quite a few homeless people in and out of North Palm because Lake Park and Riviera Beach was right down the road, and we got to where we got to know some of them, and we would ask them, when was the last time you ate? And
You're not going to talk about the tuna sandwich, are you?
we go get him food and bring him food. And the guy, you would think you'd give the guy $1 million.
Sure.
Because he was eating out of a dumpster. No, not only just the dumpster, not the top part of the dumpster where the pizza might be that the rat eats.
He was diving.
The bottom, the bottom where the liquid collects. You know, when
It was that bad.
when you see a guy doing that, it's like, come on,
Yeah, you gotta
I
help.
will buy you a sandwich.
Sure. Compassion.
It's just exactly.
I had a old lady on day shift, like 80 years old, homeless woman. She had no shoes. So I went in and bought her shoes from Walgreens. They weren't real expensive. They were flip-flops or something. $1.298 or something.
Yeah, but
to
to
her,
they-
it was the world, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, to her, they were the best.
But to have the wisdom to be able to look at a person and talk to them, and then kind of decide, is this somebody who's, you know, pulling my leg, or they putting me on, you know, is this a professional victim, or is this somebody who really needs help? And cops don't always have that, because if it's somebody who really needs help, you got to have the resources to provide it to them.
Yeah.
You don't just wish them good luck.
No, hey, take care. Have a
Yeah,
nice day.
good luck. That's going to hurt.
What did you dislike the most about law enforcement?
Wow. You know, I tried to stay. This sounds. I know I'm stupid, but I tried to stay on the positive side of things. You know, I tried to really force, because cops can get into this complaining cycle. Oh, this is no good. I'm not going to do anything. And it's like a toilet bowl thing. You know
The
what
old
I'm saying?
cynical cop
Yeah,
that
and-
everybody talks about.
Does that ever get any better? Does the guy like wake up one day and go, "Hey, yeah, I love people"? No, it gets worse. So you have to start out by saying, "I am not going to view people as, you know." So I tried to stay positive, but I think the challenge, and always something. I guess that's another point. There's always something new. You know, because we're dealing with things now, you know, they're talking about the school shootings and how do we do this, and these threats and these red flag. People are talking about red flag. What does that even mean? Do I have a book that says what the let me look up what this red flag means. Oh, you're a number 12. No, we don't. But they're using it as if we have that tool. So there's always a new challenge and always adapting. And I loved working with a small group of guys that, you know, I was looking out for them and they were looking out for me.
You develop a camaraderie.
Right.
It's a close knit.
And when you retire, that's I think the hardest thing is that you lose that group. You get out of your tribe. You get sent to the island. You know.
And I tell people it's the
That's
nature.
true, too.
Look, it's the nature of the beast. I mean, we all go through. Well, you work with guys every day and you speak to them every day, and then one guy retires and you might not speak to him for 6 months. You
Yeah.
think about each other often, but
You know what I told Charlene today before I left? We were talking about me, you know, lately I've been sick and off and on and this and that. I said to her, "Don't worry. I'm going down to the show tonight. When I get there, I'll be back in my element. I'll be fine. I'll be fine."
Well, the thing about law
Here I am, but I'm fine.
the thing about law enforcement people don't realize is when you're out, you're out. You don't go back in and touch in and all that kind of stuff, because I realize that in a couple of places you don't get to just drop into a police department when you're retired anymore.
no, they look at you. What do
Yeah,
you, what do you want?
Yeah, what do you want?
Yeah, yeah.
Who are you? What do you
So
want?
you can't force your way in, but when you're back in, the state attorney invites you into the conference room, and there you are, and he's saying thank you, and let me look at you. Oh, and what's your opinion? And that's quite a disconnect there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, policing is not all doom and gloom with horror and heartache, and there are some very lighthearted moments. Let's get to them, because those are the fun parts of the job. You know,
Could I
we're-
start? It's a.
I was going to go first.
Well,
but
let me
since
just
you're the guest, you may go
let me
first.
just ask you: is a poop story okay?
Absolutely. But
Well, and you're the owner here. I
No.
yield to you, please.
No, please tell your poop story. I'm sure we all have quite a few of those.
Well, it's quite humorous. I thought this might be the place for it.
Absolutely.
So I transitioned to days. I've been nights all this time, and I cannot. My brain does not work at 8 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't
I
work.
thought you were going to tell a story about me.
No. You paid me that money, so I wouldn't. So I could not wake up. So I'm the smart guy. So I go to 7-Eleven. I get one of those giant cups of coffee. You know, like they have the selection. It's like 5 gallons or something. And I filled that half a pot of coffee in there, and I set in my patrol car, and I just drink it down because I got to get awake. I mean, I'm responding to calls. I'm a dead man. So I'm sitting there, and everything's happy, snappy, and all of a sudden something twists in my intestine, like a gulp or a grind.
Oh,
or,
yeah.
some fluids or
and it's making noise.
yes. And so I go, okay, I'll wait on this. And then a minute later, it's like, I can't wait. Something's going to happen. I mean, something's going to happen to my patrol car, right here. So I went to our police station, the closest bathroom, and the closest bathroom is in the holding cells. So I go in there, and I just barely make it, and there's an explosion, and there's force, and there's liquids. You remember that one? And we talked about how many tiles up off the floor did it go, and I tried to clean it up and all this. And so I clean it up, and I go, I have to go home and change it. So I'm embarrassed, but okay. 2 days later, I'm in a staff meeting, right? New chief, and he's a tough guy. He's going to law and order guy. So at the end, he says, I'm launching an internal investigation. Somebody vandalized the bathroom. And I'm going, holy smokes, this can't be happening. He doesn't know me. I'm in a staff meeting, right? It's serious business.
This is true.
Yeah. So he goes, and I think someone might have let a prisoner go in there into the staff bathroom, and he vandalized it. How could poop be everywhere on the walls? That's got to be vandalism, all this kind of stuff. I'm going, so I'm sitting there thinking in the staff meeting, what am I going to do? What am I going to do?
I'll tell you one thing. It's a good thing they didn't do DNA
Yeah,
testing.
well, that would have been his next. He's going to examine tapes. And look, can I see who went in there? So at the end of the staff meeting, I raised my hand. Excuse me, Chief, I got to say something. I said, I'm the guy. I said, I'm the guy who, I said, but I couldn't help it. And I said, I tried to clean it up, Chief. And so everybody was just stunned and amazed and everything, and I'm stunned and amazed. But I mean, I could not believe this was the thing that his first investigation. It was going to be me having an explosion, 8 tiles up in the bathroom.
That's serious business.
When you wrote that thing about being able to get your gun belt off while you're going to the bathroom.
We've all been there.
That's for real.
Yeah.
So
Cops in bathrooms.
I'm in my patrol car, and I used to eat all this wild, crazy food all the time because
We've now triggered each other, right?
Oh my God! So I had to go really bad, and now I'm hauling on Sample Road to get to the bathroom, and there was no place to go except McDonald's. So now, okay, I'm going to turn my lights on because these people got to get out. Then pretty soon I've got my siren on, and I'm hauling to the bathroom. Go 3. So I come sliding in the sideways in the parking lot and shut all my stuff off and jump out, and I run inside, and all these people are looking at me like, what's going on? I go in the bathroom. So
and a delay of 1 second.
And I'm trying to get my gun belt off, and nothing's coming off fast enough. And here's a question I have for you: how does your rear end know when you get closer to the toilet?
Oh, it knows.
Because it's
Yeah, it
worse.
does.
It knows.
So anyway,
it's building pressure on.
Oh my God! So I finish up, I clean myself up, get everything, put my stuff back on. I walk out of the bathroom, and everybody in the place is standing there looking at me. I'm like,
Nothing to see here, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
I was so embarrassed.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm going to chime in with my own poop story. I'd gone for Chinese food, and I'm eating Chinese food, and I get back, and then I'm downstairs, and I'm walking my post up and down, and all of a sudden I start getting these very severe cramps, and
Can't be good.
I'm like, all right, well, I know there's a private bathroom at the next terminal. I'm going to go to the other terminal. I start walking back to my car, and as I walk back to my car, I'm like, oh, this isn't going to work. I'm not going to make it. It's just not going to work. So now I start walking, and as I start walking, I have to actually stop, and I'm like, okay, and I'm trying to breathe. It's almost like you're in labor, and people are looking at me. So I had a piece of paper in my pocket. I pull it out, and I'm looking at it like I'm reading something. And it passes. Now I'm walking as fast as I can, and there's a bathroom right by the entrance. And I get in there. I'm in full panic mode, and I start to try to open up the stall door, and it's not opening, and I can't understand why. So I'm yanking on it, and I'm pulling. I'm like, what? And I look through the crack, and there's a guy sitting there with his pants around his ankles, looking through the crack, looking at me like, what are you doing? And I was like, so you're running the same thing. It's you got to slide everything out of the way, and just in the nick of time.
Well, that's all that matters, just in the nick of time.
If nobody ever had to take that gun belt off. That's one thing civilians don't ever experience. If they don't have to get that gun belt off in 10 seconds.
Well, your cell phone has to fall in the toilet, and your radio has to fall in the toilet, and everything has to go in the toilet.
I know a guy whose badge fell in the toilet.
Of course.
Yeah, the whole thing. Hey, listen, I want to remind everybody, we'd really love to hear your stories. So give us a call at 888-511-COPS. Get to the light-hearted stories. I remember when I was a rookie and got out of the academy, and they kept us on a tight leash. We weren't allowed out for a while because there was another group in front of us, so we were pretty much stuck in a classroom. And they finally let us go out, and one of the training officers said, listen, we want you to go out and write parking tickets. But before you write a parking ticket, remember, a lot of these people are hardworking people, and they can't afford a ticket. So what you do is you walk around the car once, walk around the second time. As you're walking around the third time, pull out your ticket book, he said, because believe me, everybody is watching you. And once they see that ticket book come out, they're going to come running out. So I go to my foot post on this particular day, and they didn't care what kind of parking ticket you wrote, whether it was expired registrations or inspections or meters. And I get to my post, and I'm noticing all these cars are parked at expired parking meters. And the parking summons book was 25 summonses, and they wanted 25 parkers a month, and I think 2 moving violations. So I'm all excited. I'm like, hey, I'm getting all my parking tickets done today. I'm like, I'm going to be a star.
I'm the smartest guy in the
Yeah,
world.
I really am. I'm proud of myself. I'm so excited. I go and I call my wife. I grab a cup of coffee in a restaurant, and I'm telling her, I said, yeah, I'm going to get all my parking tickets done today. I have my coffee. I come back to my post, and I go up to the first car, and I walk around once, and I walk around twice, and the third time as I'm doing it, I pull out my ticket book, and like clockwork, my training officer really knew this guy was a genius. I pull out my ticket book and I flip it open. All of a sudden, this guy comes running out to me. He says, officer, you're not going to write a ticket for the meter, are you? Because, they're not in effect on Sundays. And I looked at him. I said, yeah, I know. And I waited for him to walk away. I put my, my tail between my legs, and I walked away. And I was, thank God this guy came out, because I would have had to avoided 25 parking tickets. They'd still be talking about the idiot that wrote all these tickets on a Sunday. Yep.
Graceful exit.
Let's let me lay a couple on you here. Especially my old BSO old timers are going to know this guy's name. George Cranack was one of the funniest deputies I ever worked with. Just a hilarious guy. He was an amazing cop because he was Mr. DUI. Literally, he could be on a 4-lane divided highway and a car driving by the other way, and he'd go, he's drunk, make a U-turn and go get him. I was like, how do you know that? He goes, I don't know, I just do. And they were always drunk. And he was a funny guy. So we're in Denny's, it's about 2 a.m. We're having breakfast. We didn't have any cell phones. This is the beginning of my police career. I come
Nobody
outside.
can conceive of not having a cell phone either. Nobody can conceive of that anymore.
So I come outside, and there's Cranack. He went outside to call his wife. He's on the payphone. And he's got black cap firecrackers all set up on the shelf, And I'm looking at him like, what the hell are you doing, And he's talking, and he lights one, and he throws it outside the phone booth. And it goes off. And he says something to his wife. Pretty soon, he lights another one, and he throws it out there. He gets down to light number 6. And he says to her, hey, listen, honey, I got to go. I got to reload. And hangs up the phone on her. And just left her.
She thought he was shooting. Yeah.
So the other story about George is we were in traffic court. So I'm sitting in traffic court, and I was there the night that this happened when he back in the day before we had pizza delivery and stuff. You remember you have to call a pizza place, you have to go get it, bring it home. So George had arrested this guy for DUI on his way home with his pizza in the back seat. So we're in court, and the guy gets up there to make his plea, and he says to the judge, Your Honor, he says, I'm pleading guilty, and this is went through the whole thing with his lawyer, and I'm pleading guilty, but I just got one thing to say. He said, what's that? He says, I did it. I was drunk. I did what he said, and I went and got my pizza, and I came back. He goes, but that son of a bitch and that tow truck driver ate my pizza in the back seat. And the judge, he looked at Cranack, and he goes, Officer Cranack, Deputy Cranack, he says, what happened? George goes, rats. Must have been rats, Your Honor, at the tow yard. Must have ate his pizza. And the guy goes, yeah, and he left all the crust.
He didn't like crust. I don't blame him.
I think that's a New York explanation for a lot of things. It's the rats. What can I do? What are we going to do about it?
Yeah, really. You talk about tickets. I was working one night. I had an unmarked vehicle. I was coming back from a meal with Richie Botensky, who was on the show. We were working, and we're coming back into the airport, and there were cars that were parked there with these signs. These pretty big signs. You remember the guys? No parking, no standing anytime. And as we're passing by, there was a vehicle that was parked right underneath the sign, and I passed it, and I said to Ma, I should have made the guy move. And Richie said to me, he's not going to move with this car. You're in a normal car. He's not going to listen to you. I said, oh, yes, he will. He said, no, he won't. I said, oh, yeah? Watch. Yeah, watch. So we come all the way back around, and I pull in behind him, and I throw my lights on, and I whoop him. Whoop, whoop. And he pulls up about 5 feet and parks underneath another sign. So Richie looks at me, he says, oh, you know, you got to give him a ticket now. I said, what? Yeah, he disrespected you. You got to give him a ticket.
It's a matter of honor.
Yeah,
now.
it's a matter. You got to
Yeah,
give him
that's
a
right.
ticket. So he got me. I said, okay, I'm going to give him a ticket. And we go out, and Richie stands towards the front of the car, and I remember he's standing there like this. He's got his arms crossed, and he's looking at the guy. And I go up and I say, excuse me, sir, I need to see your license, registration, insurance. So what did I do? I said, well, you're parked underneath this sign that says no parking, no standing any time. And then I came up behind you with my lights and siren, and whooped you. You know, everybody knows that means to move, and then you moved up a few feet, and you did it again. I need to see your license, registration, insurance. So he gives it to me. And I go back to my car, and I'm writing out the ticket, and Richie's still keeping guard, and he's standing there, you know, just looking at the guy. I finish the ticket, and I come back, and I've got my clipboard and ticket, and all of a sudden, you know, I'm looking down, and I watch Richie. Richie goes from the front of the car, and he goes right back into my car, and he sits down. And I'm looking for the driver's license. I can't find the driver's license. So I go back to the car, and Richie is now sitting in the car with a piece of paper in his face, in front of his face, and it's shaking. And I said, hey, did you see the... You dropped it down the sewer. I said, did you see the driver's license? You dropped it down the sewer. I said, what are you talking about? He said, it fell out of your hand, it bounced, and it went down the sewer.
I remember that.
I said, are you kidding me? So now I go over to the sewer, and I shine my flashlight through the grate, and I see this driver's license just sitting there. So I go up to the driver, and I said to him, well, I got good news and bad news. I said, what do you want? He said, what's the good news? I said, the good news is you're not getting a ticket. He said, okay, what's the bad news? I said, the bad news is I dropped your license down the sewer. So,
Have a nice day.
no, well, what we do is I had a crowbar in the back, and I pulled the grate up. And
I wondered if you were going to go that far.
Yes, I did. I pulled the grate up, and I actually held him by his ankles as he went and got his license. But, yeah, Richie...
That's a heck of a way to get a warning, isn't it?
It sure was. Thank you, Richie, for pushing my buttons.
Remember the time a deputy was sitting at the curb at the airport and a lady thought it was a cab and walked up and got in the back seat? Got in the back seat of a police car with a cage and everything and gave him an address to go to. You're looking at her like...
Yeah. You know, you get back to midnights, working midnights. When in New York, when we worked midnights, we used to swing into midnights every 6 weeks in the beginning when I started.
Yeah.
So you did a week of 8 to 4s, 4 to 12s, 8 to 4s.
When I started, they did the same thing.
4 to 12s, 4 to
Killer.
12s, midnights.
Killer.
It takes years off your lives.
Really? Seriously?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
They did a study on it. They actually did a
Yeah.
study. So my partner, what we would do is we'd go into the precinct if we happened to have a 2 o'clock meal. So we went into the precinct, into the lounge at 2 o'clock. We ripped off our gun belts, lay down on the lounge chair, and we went to sleep for an hour.
Sure.
We go back out on patrol, and we came in, it was like 7:35 in the morning when we come back in. And all of a sudden there was this guy, John Salmon, who was behind the desk, and he holds up a gun belt. And he says, hey, does this belong to either one of you?
Wow.
And I'm wearing mine. And my partner says to me, oh, you know, I thought I felt a little light. I said, that's great. We were on patrol for almost 4 hours with one gun.
Ooh.
Yeah, when that rotation type style working, when you'd be on a midnight shift and the sun came up, it was like daggers in your eyes. It was
man,
like
that
you were a
was terrible.
vampire. It's like your skin's on fire. It was terrible. Terrible.
It was. You know, this is one of my partners, Pat Gilley, was a latent print guy. I was assigned to the burglary unit. And there are certain people, when you do latent prints, if you don't like to do it, guys are just taking powder, they're throwing it around, and they're not really...
The show.
Yeah. And
For show.
And sometimes it's not even a good show. Well, Pat Gilley, and Pat, if you're listening, I hope you enjoy this story. Pat Gilley, we go to the scene of a burglary, and my partner and I, Tony Petroselli, are in the basement of the house, and on the table there's a jar of peanuts, a glass jar of peanuts. And I look at them, and Tony looks at me, and I take the peanuts, and I grab the bottle, the jar, and I just palm it.
That's cruel.
Oh, it is.
That's cruel.
And I lay it down on its side. So I yell up to Pat. I said, "Hey, Pat, ask the woman, there's a jar of peanuts down here, if she remembers if it was standing up or it was straight down, laying down." She said, "Oh, no, it was standing up." I said, "Well, you may want to come down here because it's not anymore." So he comes down and he starts throwing the powder, dusting the jar.
And he's getting your prints.
Oh, but it's perfect. And you could see his face light up. He is so excited. And he calls the woman's grandson down, who was about 15 years old. He said, "Hey, kid, come here. You want to see what fingerprints look like?" And very carefully, he's holding it like this. He's just holding it up. He says, "Look, check this out." The palms and everything. So now he's going to do the lift. He says to Tony, he says, "Do me a favor, hold it while I lift it." And as Tony's holding it, he does one of these, smudges a print. And Pat yells at him. He said, "What are you doing? Be careful. You're going to ruin it." He said, "All right, don't worry, I'll put it back." And at that point, Pat knew it was up. Hey, hang on. We've got a phone call, and
Oh, great.
let's see who's on the line. Hello, you're on Observations. Who are we talking to? Maybe you're not on the line. Hello?
Maybe they got tired of holding.
I don't blame them.
Me neither. Especially after a story like that.
Come on in.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay, hey.
Hello?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. This is Vicki Kenner from Minnesota,
Hey, Vicky, how are you?
and I'm good. And I'm your producer, Anthony Galicia's sister.
Okay.
I've got a funny story for you.
Does it involve Anthony?
Yes, it does.
Okay, go
Yes,
ahead.
it does.
I just want to let you know he's waving to me through the window, and he's like begging me to dump this call. So go ahead with your
No,
story.
don't dump it.
No, we be able to use
Don't
this.
dump it.
No, I'm not.
Don't dump it.
Go ahead.
Okay, years ago, we all met together to go down to Florida for my mother's surprise birthday party. Okay, and we all decided that we were going to meet up at the airport, and we were going to go get all together, and we were going to drive to my mom. Right? We get on the interstate, and we're there for maybe a half an hour. Now, my younger sister had a roach in the ashtray.
And not the
Right.
not the
Never
four-legged,
wanna
not
move.
the four-legged kind.
No, not the four-legged kind.
Okay.
And we're driving along, and all of a sudden, my sister stops driving and says, "Oh, I said, "What?" And she said, "There is a cop behind us, flashing his lights." And so my little sister is like, "Oh, no, we are in trouble. What do we do with this?"
Eat it.
So the guy is
The dilemma.
guy is right. Yeah, and the guy is talking on his intercom, saying, "Okay, pull over, get out of the car, put your hands up, and this and that." And so the people in the front got out, walked back there, and all of a sudden I see these two beating up a cop. Beating up a cop.
This is
So we got out.
okay.
Listen, we got out and went back there to see what was going on, and it was my brother, okay? My brother had this all set up. And so we're all beating him up, and people are driving by really, really slow, saying, "Who are these people that are beating up this cop? They should be arrested." So that's
Dangerous
the
in
funny
a concealed carry state.
Yeah.
one. It's dangerous with the Galicia family, okay? Tell you what.
Any way you
That's
put it.
the mafia right there.
The Galicia
Yeah,
Mafia.
but I thought I'd let you in on something about Anthony.
So I have a question for you. Who smoked the roach? That's what I want to know.
Don't answer that
My
question.
Yeah,
little
don't answer that.
sister-
Don't answer that question.
I'm almost an attorney. Don't answer that
That's
question.
personal. Okay, I won't.
All right. Well,
but I had to let you in on that.
thank you very
and I
much.
listen to you every week, and I just love it.
Great. Thank you so much for calling in, and we'll be able to break his chops later on.
That's his wife.
Oh, good. Okay.
Thank you. Have a
good night.
You too. Thanks. Okay. All right, Tony. We'll use that later on. We'll have some ammunition. Right. Hey guys, if you'd like to call, share your stories, we'd love to hear some stories. Give us a call at 888-511-COPS. 888-511-2677. How about pranks? You guys pulled pranks on coworkers?
I hated it. As a sergeant, shift supervisor, watch commander, I hated pranks.
I think we were all victims at some point.
That was older day, modern day. I that was my personal thing. I couldn't stand. They go out of control. They get misinterpreted. It goes bad really quick, and some things you can't back out of.
Yeah, you definitely have to have a thick skin, and if you're gonna pull a prank, you better be able to take it.
Yeah.
I remember one day I was
maybe
working.
I wasn't brave enough.
I was working one day, and what I used to do is when I used to do the detail, I was a detective, and I used to hang up my uniform in the sergeant's office. So I'm getting ready for my detail. Now I go to take my uniform and put it on. My sleeves are stapled together. My pants legs are stapled together. My name tag is upside down. And I was like, all right, you want to play? We'll play. Yeah. Well, the following day I came into work with some shoe polish, and I smeared the earpiece of my boss's phone. And I put it on, and I waited, because I knew he'd be coming into my office at some point, and I had my cell phone all ready to go with his desk phone number programmed. And then he came in, we were talking, and I hit the send button, and it rings a couple of times, and he runs inside, and I hear him, hello, 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 and I hang up. Well, he comes back into my office, and there's just a little dot of shoe polish on his ear. Wasn't good enough for me.
No, that's no good.
No. So I hit redial, and goes back into his office, and I hear, hello, 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 you mother, and he hangs up, and he comes into my office, and there's shoe polish all caked up on his ear, and looks at me, and he says, you went too far. I said, what? He said, you crossed the line. I said,
Was
you
this
kid-"
in New York?
No, this was here.
I thought so.
This is here. I said, what? He said, you went a little too far. You crossed the line. I said, you kidding me? He said, no, I'm not. He said, you crossed the line.
Who was the boss?
Tom O'Brien.
Oh.
So.
No kidding.
Wait, and so he walks out of my office. So I go running into his office. I said, he said, listen, get out of my office. I don't want to talk to you. I said, are you kidding me? He said, no. Get out of my office. So I'm kind of hurt. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And now I see he goes walking out of his office. Now I go chasing him down the hall. And I said, hey, Tom. He said, listen to me. And he's throwing up saying, I don't want to talk to you. Get away from me. Leave me alone. He said, leave me alone. And he leaves. I'm like, wow. I go back and I'm sitting in my office. I'm like a puppy dog, like a wounded. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And I'm really upset.
So he turns it around on you.
Oh, he sure did, because he comes back 2 minutes later. He said, he said, I knew.
Gotcha.
He said, I knew you would be upset. But it was, like I said, if you
But that would
That's the
freeze
kind of
me.
guy you are. That's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah, he said,
Yeah.
I took it to heart. I was like, oh.
If Don from Ohio, if you're out there listening to this tonight, many moons ago, early in my career, we had computers in our cars. They were trying this new fancy thing, and this is in the 70s. And we had the computers in our car, and you had your big kill light and your equipment, and since we had take-home cars, we had extra handcuffs, and so so we raided this gambling house. So I get all the guys' ID and everything, and I go outside, and Don's still inside. So I go out to the car to use this fancy new computer, and I see that Don left his car unlocked. And we're in the middle of the ghetto, and this is not a good thing. So I stole all his stuff. I stole his computer. I stole his kill light. I took his all the extra stuff out, and I put it in the trunk of my car. I ran all the guys go back in. And then when he comes out, remember in Animal House, how the guy was jumping around in front of the sorority house? What's his name?
John Belushi?
Yeah, John Belushi. He was jumping around like,
Right.
well, that's what Don was doing in the middle of the front yard because all this stuff was gone and he didn't know what to do about it.
And then he had his heart attack.
Yeah, and then I said, okay. I said, man, somebody stole all your stuff. I played it up real big. And he said, yeah. I said, oh, man, that's too bad. I said, you better call Sergeant Chessel and tell him. So I was going to say something to him, and he gets in the car and he drives off and he calls the sergeant on the. So I go, well, okay.
That happened to me.
So he went and told the sergeant, and then I pulled up and gave him his stuff back.
Can I give one more contribution here?
No.
Oh, all right.
All right, go ahead.
Are you sure?
Positive. Go ahead.
It won't be a poop story.
All right.
When we had tasers for a while, and I think, Gary, you were involved in this. We had some ex-Marine that was having some psychotic incident. So he was a big, young, strong guy. So we tasered him. And then we had to use some kind of force to get him into the cell, into the holding cell. But he had the 2 taser prongs still in him, right? Well, they just changed policy, and they said that paramedics don't have to remove them, and you have a choice of emergency room or the sergeant could take him out. So we were busy, and I was brave, and I said, I'm going to take these 2 probes out of this guy. So I go into the cell with the guy, and I say to him, hang on, buddy. I'm going to pull this probe out. So I get my Leatherman out, and I grab one of those probes, and I yank for everything I'm worth. And all I see is this giant rubber-looking, like, boob thing come out. It didn't tear the skin. It kept pulling and pulling and pulling, and finally it rips the skin, and it comes out. So this guy's drunk, and he's messed up, and he's had this psychotic incident. So I go, hang on, Marine. We're going for number 2, right? So I called the paramedics and to put Band-Aids on. I thought, well, if no, it's in policy, and if this guy's not complaining, he's going to go to... So he went away, and that was the guy that hated you, wanted to fight you. And he was bad.
Yeah.
But he calmed down. But I don't know what went in my mind that I was going to pull these taser probes out of this guy's side. What's wrong with me?
If you wanted to see,
Yeah, because they said I could do it.
Yes.
Yeah,
All right,
you tell a
I'll
cop
give
you can do it. I'll give it a try.
I'll try it, yeah.
But it kept pulling and pulling out until then the skin has to rip. It was
Eventually.
terrible.
Eventually.
that-
Well,
that-
hopefully eventually.
That taser really, I got a lot of laughs. I had this Broham in the back of my patrol car. He was under arrest, and
That was a term
was-
of art that we used. It was from The
he
Sopranos.
was so from The Sopranos.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he said, "Boy," he said, "don't give me that taser, bro. I'll take the good old ass whooping any day."
Yeah, those tasers.
I
were-
love the taser.
They were really, I mean, they worked well, but boy, they really hurt like hell. But it was only 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's crazy. Taser, I wouldn't carry a taser because you couldn't justify to me why I had to get hit with it. I have another Pat Gilly story that I want to tell. This was in traffic court. I'm gonna have to read a little bit. Pat had to appear at traffic court for a ticket that he had given like eight years prior. That's how backed up it was. It was for a red light summons.
Jeez.
And when he was in traffic court, this guy comes over to him, sees his name tag, and says, "Officer Gilly, do you remember me? You gave me a ticket. Do I look familiar? Do you remember me?" And Pat's looking at him. He says, I'm here on 4 different cases in 4 different rooms. Somebody's been using my name. Do you remember giving me a ticket? And with this, he gets called into another courtroom. So Pat decides he's going to have some fun in traffic court with this guy. Now, we've all been in traffic court, and the guy that Pat is going for, the judge, never looks up when you're testifying, and Pat's certain that this guy doesn't even pay attention to anything that you say. So he's just going to ramble on and go through his story. So it's about an hour later when he goes to Pat's room, and he goes before the judge, and Pat tells the story. After he's sworn in, he says, the gentleman's name is Mr. Parker. He says, on March 31st, 1991, he says, at approximately 1300 hours, I observed the defendant, Mr. Parker, walking eastbound on Brighton Beach Avenue and Brighton 6th Street. At this point, I observed Mr. Parker pull out a handgun and shoot 2 people, killing 1. At this point, Pat doesn't realize, because he's testifying, Mr. Parker is now on the floor. Okay, the stenographer who's typing up is standing there with her mouth just gaping open. Right? So the judge at this point still has not looked up. He said, Mr. Parker then entered his vehicle and proceeded northbound on Coney Island Avenue, at which time I observed him disregard a steady red light. I pulled him over and issued the citation. And then he says, only kidding, Your Honor. He says, I have no recollection of the incident. And he said the judge, without missing a beat or even looking up, testifies, responds. He says, whether or not Mr. Parker shot 2 people, killing one has no bearing on this case as to his guilt or innocence on the red light. But due to the fact you have no recollection, this case is dismissed. So Parker now at this point is standing up and looks at me and says, what the hell is that? What is the matter with you? Did you lose your mind? You're nuts.
He says, you got off the ticket, didn't you?
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Listen, I was
Don't ever mess with the judge, though.
I was
Never
working,
mess with
I
the
was
judge.
working spring break on the beach in 1985. I'm on the police Harley Davidson motorcycle. So we're driving north, and we see this long-haired dude, no shirt on, standing on top of the beach wall, and he's urinating in the sand. So my partner, a Fort Lauderdale cop, says, "Hey, let's arrest that guy." I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So we pull over and tell him to come here and do whatever. We arrest him. So I didn't have to do anything because we were there to back up Fort Lauderdale. It was their city, so they did all the paperwork. So this guy,
Win-win.
his name was Harley. Believe it or not, his real name was Harley. And the cop. So he writes up on the PC, and he actually sent this to the judge. He said, Deputy Dickinson and I were northbound on A1A. I looked over to the right and observed an individual standing on the beach wall with a steady stream of fluid running from his waistband to the sand. As I approached the suspect, I observed him holding in his hand what appeared to be a male penis, but was much, much smaller. And he actually sent that in to the judge the next morning to read.
It's amazing. We have some breaking news. They had one of the trials, one of the Tamarack deputies that was involved in an incident several months ago was found not guilty. So it's good news for Deputy Mackey. They found him not guilty.
What incident was that?
Unrelated.
Yeah, it was an unrelated incident by...
No, he means unrelated to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, hey, that's why I get paid the big bucks.
Sharp.
I'm sharp as a tack. Hey, there was an incident in Tamarack. After school, there was a fight, and some deputies got involved, and it was a mess, and the charges were brought up against them. But thankfully, one of the deputies was found not guilty.
Good.
Also, Gary Lou Pearson. Does his name sound familiar?
Yeah.
I guess he called. He sent a message on Facebook, and he wants you to tell the time you lost his tooth. You lost your tooth
Oh, come on.
wrestling a kid.
Lou, no. You're out there in the Ethernet somewhere.
Oh, you don't have to if you don't want to.
All right.
I may have some additional...
I'm going to kill you, Lou. Hey,
Thanks, Lou.
we were on the midnight shift, and I had just been at North Palm Beach, 4 months, 5 months? So
Now, this is after how many years in law enforcement?
34.
Okay.
So we get
I
up.
think you'd have learned by now.
Right. You would think. Thanks, Lou. So we get up. We get this call of like a domestic, and a woman's crying for help, and it sounded pretty serious. So Lou and I and another guy responded to the scene, and we get there. We go upstairs to the second floor. Lou knocks on the door. Lady opens the door, and she's crying. And there's along the edge of the doorway are a bunch of boxes stacked up, so it didn't leave much room for entry and exit. And I'm telling you this for a reason. So then he says to her, "Are you okay, ma'am? What's the problem?" That type of stuff. Next thing you know, her son, who's the suspect, steps into the doorway, and he's drunk and high. He starts
And mentally disturbed.
Oh yeah, and he's telling us to get the hell out. What are you doing here?
He's a big boy, too.
Get out of my you get out of my apartment. So he's doing all this stuff. So Lou is a pretty good sized fellow himself. So he tries to talk to the guy with the yes sir, no sir, be a nice guy. Didn't work. So he just reached in and he grabbed him around the scuff of his neck and snatched him out the door. So next thing you know, we're in a fight with this guy, and we're on the second story. We don't have much room. We have a taser with us, but we don't have any room to really taser him. So we get him down to the ground, and I'm doing the old-fashioned old days. I'm beating the hell out of him.
The old-fashioned old days beat the hell out of you.
Yeah. So
A technique.
Yes. I learned that in the academy many years ago.
So Lou's
Specialized
hitting them. We're
technique.
trying to get him handcuffed. And this guy, he was, like I said, loaded, and like you said, a big guy.
Yeah.
And he
Giant.
muscular.
Giant of a man.
So we couldn't get his hands behind his back. And I finally told Lou, I said, drive stun him with that taser. So he pulls the prongs off and lets him have it. We finally get him cuffed. We get him up and take him downstairs. Come to find out later from the mother that the son was trying to sexually assault his own mother. And that's why she was so upset.
Right.
But that was all she'd tell us. She didn't want to press charges for that. She wouldn't talk about it anymore. But anyway, so I take him downstairs, and I got him cuffs behind him, and I'm holding the cuffs up high because he's still trying to kick me. I get him to the car, and I grab the back door, and it's locked. I said, Lou, unlock the car. He unlocks the driver's door, pulls it open, hits the button. As I looking at Lou to tell him to unlock the car, and I start to look back, the guy leans forward and slams his head butts me, and he hits me right in this tooth and snapped my tooth off.
Thank you, Lou.
There was a lot of,
Well,
it wasn't Lou's fault, but
and part two of that, so I meet with Gary, and I say, Gary, you're injured, right? I got to get you off the shift. You need to get me. I don't need any help at all. Gary, just got a tooth snapped out of your head. You got to go. I mean, we'll fill you in. And he's whistling, and he goes, no, I'm going to. So this was like 4 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't feel so good. He's all yellow or greenish or whatever it was, and he's whistling, and he can't. And he's. I forgot.
So
he
I gotta
also
tell
reached down and tried to find his tooth, but as Lou says, he picked up a rock, and he said, "This is my tooth." And Lou tells me, I don't know if it's true or not, that Lou has to tell him, "No, that's not your tooth, Gary. Your tooth is about 10,000 pieces." And
now this guy broke my tooth, so now I'm seeing red like a bull. And there's people around, but I don't. So I open that back door and I tell the guy, "Get in the car." And he's cuffed like this, and he stiffs up his back. "I'm not getting in the car." I said, "Get in the car." He said, "I'm not getting in the car." I probably said it with my tooth.
a couple of whistles.
Yeah. So I just step back.
Dramatic demonstration.
With the old days, from my karate days, and I front kicked him right in the stomach as hard as I could get him.
Folded him in half and put him in
Folded
the
him
car.
in half, and he shot in that car like a rocket, you know. I slammed the door on him. I turned around, and Lou was laughing. I had to have my tooth fixed.
Let me see you smile.
He made me go to the hospital.
Yeah, I'm okay, Sarge. Yeah, okay.
Document everything.
Yeah.
That was a hell of a fight, I'll tell you that, boy. I mean, that guy, he wouldn't give in.
Gotcha. Remember, if you have a question, comment, or a story you'd like to share, you can join the conversation by giving the studio a call at 888-511-COPS. That's 888-511-2677. Don't forget, you can also instant message your questions and comments to the Copservations Facebook page. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation on the lighter side of policing.
We're going to the playoffs. I can't believe I missed that. Every time I'm buzzed, I spend too much time on my phone. What? I should take your phone away. No. I'll call for a ride. Hey, why does my face look like that?
I'm playing with these new face filters.
Okay, you know what? Yep, that's mine. I'm gonna need that back. No. Kevin.
listen, you're my friend.
I noticed you haven't really been yourself recently.
Yeah, I feel like something's up.
How are you?
Are you okay?
Is there anything you want to talk about?
I just want to know how you're feeling.
And listen, even if you don't know what to say, I'm here to talk.
No matter what you're going through,
I just want you to know I'm here.
I've got your back. When you want to talk, I'm here.
Awkward.
To talk to our host, call the podcast studio toll-free at 888-511-COPS. That's 888-511-2677. Now back to Rob.
Welcome back to Cobservations. We're here with our guest, retired Detective Sergeant Henry Mackey, discussing the lighter side of policing. And sometimes I also have the topic, I like to call it, thank God they're stupid. You know, a lot of cases are solved, unfortunately, not due to great police work, though we like to take credit, but sometimes it's because the people are stupid. You know, these criminals are not the brightest sometimes.
And thank God for that.
Absolutely. That's why I say thank God they're stupid. You know, back in this was back in the 90s. I was a detective in the robbery squad, and I had a case where this guy was robbed at gunpoint by somebody that he knew. He knew this guy is Sweet Pea, and he was robbed of his shearling winter coat. It was a long winter coat, probably about 3/4 length, with a shearling liner. A very heavy coat for the winter time. And at the time the robbery took place, it was probably 30 or 40 degrees, and this was in March. And you know how they say March comes in like a lion and out like a lamb. Well, one day we're doing a canvass. It's about a week after I have the case, and sure enough, this was one of those days where it was exceptionally warm. It was probably about 70 degrees. And my partner and I are driving. They're standing on the corner in the 70-degree weather, wearing this shearling coat on. Is this kid Sweet Pea with the hood up? And it was, yeah, you know, it's like thank God they're stupid. It made my job a lot easier. It was one of the quickest robberies I solved. Have any? Come on, you got to come up with something.
You know, it's just sometimes, like you say, we were talking earlier. You know, he tells one story, and then it reminds me of something, and that's how you remember stuff. You just can't.
You trigger each other.
Okay,
yeah, you know,
I'm going to go on with another one.
There's got to be more. I got the stories from your book.
I've got a million of them.
I told you a bunch.
Yeah.
Did he steal your stories? Is that
You
what
gonna
you're
give me
saying?
that book or what?
We'll think about it. We'll think about it.
Make a deal.
You know, years ago, also while I was in the robbery squad, we got a call for a bank robbery, and my partner and I show up to the bank, and this guy had gone up to the teller window and handed her a note. Said, "Hey, listen, I have a gun. Give me all your money." As she's starting to put the money together, he dropped something, and he bent down to pick up the note. Well, when he bent down to pick up the note, she walked away from the window. So now this guy is standing in front of an empty window. So he leaves. So we're talking to him, and I said to my partner, I said, "Hey, Joey," I said, "Look, this guy's going to go hit another bank. You know, he was unsuccessful the first time. He's going to hit another bank." And we got a description. He was a male in his mid-50s with a crew-cut type haircut with a plaid shirt. So we go to the next bank, which is about 5 minutes away, and we were in plain clothes. So I said to my partner, I said, "Wait in the car. I'll go into the bank and see if I see anything." So I walk into the lobby of the bank, and I'm looking around, and I don't see anything. As I'm coming out, all of a sudden this gentleman comes up to me and says, "Excuse me, do you have the time?" And I look at him, and I said, "Yeah, it's 3 o'clock, and he's got a crew cut."
About time for me to arrest you.
Well, he's got crew cut, and he's got a pen in his hand and a piece of paper. And I said, "All right." So I go outside, I grab my partner real quick, and we take him down at gunpoint. And the note says, same note that he passed to the other one, "I have a gun, don't press any alarms, give me all the money." You know, so it was another thing. It was like, hey, you know, thank God they're stupid. The funny part about this was I remembered him. He was a doorman in my grandfather's apartment building. And I remember him from being a kid. And I said to him, I said, "Yeah, you used to be a doorman?" And he looked at me like, how did you know? You know, another rocket scientist.
You know, I just thought of a funny story.
There you go.
I was, it involves you.
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know if I want you to tell it.
Rob and I are at Terminal 1. The airport is closed, so we're standing inside the gate, and this woman comes walking towards us.
Oh, I remember. You got to be careful how you word this.
I know. I ought to be careful. So this woman
on
comes.
some kind of button.
Yeah.
So here comes this woman walking towards us, middle-aged lady, not bad looking. And she comes walking up to us and says, we tell her you can't come any closer because of the TSA rules, you know. And she said, oh, I just have a question, how to get somewhere, directions or something. And he goes, come on up, there's nobody here. So she walks up to him. Rob's standing right here. I'm standing right here. It's like I wasn't even there. She walks up to him and she says, asks him some innocuous question about the directions or what time something opens. And I swear to, she's just like this. She's looking at him, she says the question, and she bends over all the way down at the waist and looked right at his crotch.
You cleaned that up very well.
And I mean, I'm not talking about
We're
a
not
little
done yet.
bit. I'm talking about all the way down, and she's level
Here
with
we
his
go.
crotch, looking right at his. And he looks down like that, and he looks at me. He looks back. She stands up, and she says, "Thank you very much," and she walked away. And Rob looked at me, and I looked at him, and I said, Did you just see what I saw? He goes, "You mean her looking at my pecker?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Do you believe she did that?"
I did feel violated. I felt like a piece of meat. It was horrible.
I couldn't
How
believe she
long did
did.
it take you to get over that?
I'm
Years.
still
Yeah,
it's
therapy.
still to this day it still bothers me.
He's been in counseling.
If
for
You know,
Because-
if everybody in the nation is not watching this podcast, they are missing something. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That story was
That's the
worth-
truth.
I mean, that
I couldn't believe it.
But
He
you-
looked at me. He looked down. He looked at me.
But you know what the sad part about that whole thing is? That was the first and last time that ever happened. It was horrible. It was traumatic. You know,
I'll tell you another. We got time for another one?
Sure.
I'm going to clean this one up too.
Okay.
I'm
You did
not
that
going to
one?
mention names.
Okay.
But we were at the airport, same location, Terminal 1. Joe Lieberman was running for the presidency of the United States at the time. You know Joe Lieberman?
Mm-hmm.
Really nice guy. I like him.
big political future.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, he didn't make it, but he's a good man, though, seriously, for a Democrat. I mean, did I say that?
It's going to be a comeback.
So he's on the last flight coming in, and there's two Capitol cops waiting to pick him up at the gate. So one of our partners with us, who I'll just use his initials, CD, was in the. He went to the bathroom. So there's a man's room, a women's room, and in the middle is a
private bathroom.
Private bathroom for both men and women, family bathroom.
Yeah.
So he goes in there because it's cleaner. We all use that so he's in there. He's taking a leak. We forget about him. So Joe Lieberman walks up. We go, "Oh, Mr. Lieberman, how you doing?" We shook his hand and everything. There's nobody in the place. Place is empty. So he says, "Hey, I got to go to the bathroom. Just a minute." And he starts walking. And I said, "Hey, you use that family bathroom. It's a lot cleaner." He says, "Okay." So he walks over to the bathroom. Now, this guy is potentially going to be possibly the president of the United States. So he walks over to the bathroom and he opens the door. And as he opens the door like this, he looks over at the two cops from the Capitol cops and us, and he goes, "Hey, I hope there's no bums in here." And he kind of laughed, made a joke, right?
That's all right, Charlie.
Charlie's standing at the urinal taking a pee, and he turned around and goes, "Hey, man, who you calling a bum?" Something else, and a couple other words, and he goes, "Oh my God!" He shut the door back, So now me and him, we start laughing because now we realized, oh my God, Charlie was in the bathroom. So we're laughing like hell. So Charlie comes out, "Yo, Mr. Lieberman."
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call your name like that, but he goes, "Sir," he says, "if I win the presidency, I'm in the White House. You can come use my bathroom anytime you want."
And needless to say, Charlie's not going to use that bathroom
Yeah.
anytime soon.
Thank God.
With all the reports that you guys have taken over the years, and it's got to be hundreds and hundreds of reports.
Oh, God.
Have you ever arrested anybody for filing a false report?
Yeah, many years ago, I got they called me into the office and said, "Listen, there's this chick out here, and this lady from some college, and she claims that she was raped, and we want you to take her out and drive her around, and see if you can find where the crime scene happened. And this was, like early on in my career. So
Hey,
I put her in my.
Would you mind holding that thought? We have a call in.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I hate to interrupt you, but I want to get him in. This is Pat Gilly, who you've heard stories.
Yes.
Pat was one of the funniest guys that I've worked with. Hello, hey Pat. Pat Gilly. Patrick.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Pat. How are you?
Oh, good. I just wanted to tell you one or two quick stories.
Did he call in once before?
I called in and I ruined the first show.
You ruined the first show, right? And your wife forbid you from calling us back.
Yes.
So she must be out. Is she out right now?
No, there was just a huge argument over it.
What, did you sneak in the bathroom or something?
That's gonna echo.
But she goes to the. She heard. Let me move in here. She heard Bob say that he felt like a piece of meat before, and she goes off. She goes, you see how people feel? I go, he's kidding. She's like, no, he's not. I'm like, he's kidding. But did you tell that story about the time I dusted the house for fingerprints?
Yes, I did the Peanut story and the Mr. Parker story. That,
number 3 and number 15.
Yeah.
No. The one with the female that was all over me on the late print job.
Oh, I don't remember that story.
Oh,
and by the way, Pat, go ahead.
Maybe you shouldn't have called in.
Well, I got Bob's story about the woman looking at him reminded me of it. So I go to dust a house that was was burglarized. I was a latent print officer at the time, and I go with one female named Patty. I don't want to mention her last name here.
Helen, but we won't mention her name.
Yeah, okay. So we get there, and we helped each other out. She did juveniles, and I did latent prints. She had a car, I didn't, so we worked together. So we get to this house, and this beautiful girl opens the door, clearly dressed. I mean, her body is falling out of her clothing. And there's like 5 or 6 other good-looking girls there. So she takes me into the bedroom where something was stolen. I'm with Patty.
Where all the other hookers were.
No, they're like 18 years old.
Okay.
And they're normal. So
it wasn't Epstein's house, was it?
As long as they're normal.
She starts rubbing up against me. She starts rubbing up against me as I'm dusting, and I go, that's $1. You can't just touch me like that for free. All over me. I mean, it was, and I'm unattractive. She's all over me.
That's my problem. I'm unattractive, so no girls are looking at me.
We finish up the print job, and I walk outside, and I go to Patty. I go, did you see that? She goes, you say it all the time, but I got to admit, this girl was all over you. So anyway, the day ends, and the next morning we're out for breakfast with the Warrant guys, and we're driving down Neptune Avenue. And she's telling the story how this girl was all over Pat Gilly, and they're like, no way. And they ask, well, what's her name? And she says the name. They go, we got a warrant for him. And I go, no, it's a girl. And they go, no, that's a guy.
The words every man fears.
Well,
yeah. So in other words, she was a transgender. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that nowadays.
No, listen, let's be politically correct. He identified as a female.
There you go.
So that's perfectly fine, Pat.
So now we split up. They go get him, and they bring him in, and he is wearing the same outfit as the day before. And the whole precinct is whistling, catcalling to her in front of the desk.
And she was probably loving every minute of it.
I put my hat on, I walked out with my head down, and I got out of there.
Hey, Pat.
Yeah.
Would you mind,
Go ahead.
while I got you on, would you mind telling that story when you had to testify in court as a rookie with the instructions that the district attorney gave you?
I don't remember. Did you tell us already?
Yeah, but I figured you would tell it better, so I want you to repeat it. No, I didn't tell the story already.
Original from the source.
I was brand new. I don't remember everything about it, but I was brand new. And the district attorney, knows you're brand new, and they're like, listen, just relax when you're up there and look at me before you say anything, because she might want to object or whatever. So it's a boring story, but so I'm nervous as a wreck up there, and I'm trying to be as honest as I can. That's your job, right? Being honest, and the defense attorney goes to me, are you in uniform that day? And I said, yes. And he goes, were you in that uniform? I'm like, oh, no, he's got me. I go, well, maybe not the same shirt. But I knew I had the same pants on. I only had 2 uniform pants. I guess you had to be there. But I want to tell you here's my last quick one. The best thing is pranks on other cops. Those were always the best. And Bob mentioned one before, but I remember quickly we were going on an aided case, and anything can happen on any job. And we get in the elevator, me and my partner, and we see the sergeant's car pull up, and it's a brand new sergeant to the command that night. So we have to wait. So we're holding the elevator. So I take out my 38, right? It's a 6-shot. I'm not a big gun guy, but I empty out the bullets, and I hand them to my partner, Patty. He goes, what are you doing? I go, just take them. And I put my gun away. And the sergeant and Terry, the driver, get on. And nothing's being said. We're up there. I go, all right, give me one. And Barrett goes, no, you're not getting any. I go, give me one. You never know what's going to happen up there. So he
this one's funny. This is funny.
He takes a bullet out. He goes, all right, but don't use it unless I say so. I go, fine. And I open my gun. I open my gun, and he puts it in there. And I close it. We handle the aided case, and we get back on the elevator. We're going down. No words are said. No words are said. And he goes, yeah, let's have it. I go, what? He goes, give it back, the bullet. I had to give back the bullet. But those are good times, great stories. And I'm going to get Bobby Lerner, if you don't mind, with one story.
What did the new sergeant say?
My friend.
What did the new sergeant?
Not a word. Not a word.
What, he thought you were Barney Fife?
Sergeant. Yeah, he didn't say what word about.
I think it's dangerous when they don't say a word.
Probably figured he didn't want to know.
That's the day. No, let me
All
explain.
Right, so here's my last one. So me and Bobby Lerner, I was Leighton Prince. Bobby Lerner was investigating burglaries, and there was a guy called the Cliff Walker. He was named the Cliff Walker because he would go to extreme heights to get into people's apartments. They were leaving a window open that they never thought anybody could get in.
Let me interrupt you for a quick second, Pat. Yeah, he used to, like the 5th floor. From the fifth floor, 6th floor, he would go out the window and just walk the ledge. Go ahead, Pat.
The old cat burglar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
But
what he did was he would always put the chain lock on the front door, and he opened up all the windows by the escalator, fire escape, so he could get out. And he did so many burglaries. We got to know him real well as far as his pattern. He fed the pets. Every pet got to eat. He watered plants, stuff like that, and he even stole clothing. So we had an idea how tall he was and what his weight was. But so anyway, I'm with the warrant guy one day, and we're on the other side of Brighton, and the call comes in where a neighbor in the apartment building sees her neighbor's door slightly open with the chain on it. And I go, this is it. This is him. And I'm explaining to him as we're racing across Brooklyn to get there. No lights, no sirens. We're just racing. And I said, look, when we get up there, I'm going to stay at the window of the fire escape so I can get a great description of this guy so I can put it out over the radio, So Bob gets to the door and gives me the nod that he's going to take the door. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I got my radio out. And, Bob takes the door. Crash. He goes down. All this stuff is falling on him. I can hear it. I have to leave the window now because he's in trouble. So I get to the door. Bob's on his back. There's an ironing board on top of him, tons of clothes, boxes. And he's trying to get to his feet. I'm trying to get the stuff off him so he can get up. And all of a sudden you hear from the back room, who is it? And he yells, police. And this old lady goes, next time try the bell. She just had a door open to let air it. And we broke it down. Thinking it was the bird. I guess you ought to be there. But all of a sudden you just hear, next time, try the bell.
Next time,
all
try
right,
the
I'm
bell.
going.
Mr. Peterson, thank you very much for calling, Patrick.
All right, thanks. Bye.
I'll speak to you tomorrow.
But
You know, it's funny because it reminds me of a story. We used to have ComStat meetings, Power Track, ComStat, you know, the crime statistics.
Do you still do that?
No.
Oh, thank
no,
God.
but New York, that's where it started, ComStat.
yeah.
And before these meetings would come up, guys would, you know, bosses would be in panic mode. They wanted to
I
make
know.
sure everything was good. So in this particular, we did a pre-ComStat meeting, and we had to go. And they were talking about this burglar, this particular burglar. And the inspector's asking, hey, do you guys have anything on this burglar? Do we know anything? And as I'm saying no, Pat chimes in. He says, oh, yeah. Now, I look at him like, what are you doing? He says, oh, yeah. He goes through the whole thing. He feeds animals, and he steals clothes, and he's very well dressed. And who knows, maybe 1 or 2 times I may have even held the door open for him, not even knowing. And he goes through this whole thing, and I don't say a word. We get in the car, and I hope you're still listening, Pat. We get in the car, and I look at him, and I'm like, what the hell is the matter? What are you thinking? What are you doing? First of all, I'm the detective, and I'm telling him no, and you're doing this whole thing, and he's just like, you know, I'm sorry, and doesn't know what to say. Now we go back to the precinct, and I'm sitting at my desk, and all of a sudden, the phone rings. And it's this inspector, whatever his name is. He says, oh, detective, you know, this is Inspector so-and-so. I just wanted to ask you a few more questions about that burglary suspect. I said, oh, can you hang on 1 second? And I put the phone down, and I go to run to go see where Pat is. And when I run in, he's at a typewriter typing. So I get back on, son of a bitch. I get back, yes, Inspector. It was Pat. but he knew I was going to come run and check up on him, so it was just like,
Those detectives always drove me crazy. That you'd say, "What about this some random?" They'd always, "Oh yeah, we got a guy in mind for that." They're not telling the truth. I got a guy in mind for that one, you know.
Oh,
absolutely. They never had a case that they didn't have a guy in mind.
Yeah, we got somebody we like for that.
Yeah, we're looking at somebody. Okay,
yeah,
sure.
we had a guy.
What story was I telling before we cut out the Pat's Paul? Do you remember?
That's right. I'm sorry about that.
What was it? No, that's okay. What?
The false report.
Oh, yeah, it's not a big deal.
Driving
But
her around.
But so anyway, I drove this chick around. I drove her around almost all day, from place to place to place out in the woods, and then finally she confessed. Oh, really? I'm just a college kid, and I'm doing a story about rape, and we wanted to see how you guys treated us and we heard you treated women bad, which of course I would never do. But I said, no, it's fine. We drove back to the station. I got out of the car, and she said, okay, well, I guess I'll see you later. I said, no, you're going to see more of me because you're under arrest.
Did you arrest her?
Yeah, I arrested her. Yeah, look, if she'd have said 1 or 2 things and wanted to see how I treated her and then let it go, but to have me drive her around all day,
sure,
take me out of patrol and drive her around all day, I locked her up.
I had that.
They probably dropped the charges or something, but you know.
Sure. Well, I had that when I was in the robbery squad. It was a Sunday, and we covered 2 precincts. And Sunday, you know how Sunday is. It's usually a quiet day, and I was sitting in my office, and I was watching the football game, and I get a telephone call from this detective from the 6-1 precinct, and telling me that he's got this guy who's claiming that he was kidnapped and robbed, and I need to come speak to him. And I said, say that again? This guy was kidnapped and robbed. I said, do me a favor, talk to him, see if this is nonsense, or do I really have to come over there? So he gets back on. He said, yeah, you need to come. I said, all right, I'm on my way. And I sit down with this guy. He was a security guard. There was a gambling ship that used to go out of Sheepshead Bay that once they were out 3 miles, you were allowed to gamble, and he was a security guard. And I asked him what happened. He said he got off work, and he was on his way to the bus stop when the car pulled up, and asked him for directions and if he had a light, because they were smoking cigarettes. So when he reached in with the cigarette lighter to give the guy a light, they grabbed him at gunpoint, threw him into the car, drove him across town, locked him up in a utility closet, duct taped him, and robbed him. He was robbed of $470. So I'm listening to this story. I said, listen to me. I said, if you have to come up with some type of story to tell somebody something, let me know now. I said, because if you're telling me you were kidnapped and you were robbed, I said, this is a real major case. I said, I've got to make notifications all the way up to, I've got to notify major case squad. It's a big thing. You're talking kidnapping and robbery. And he said, no, this is what happened. I said, listen to me. you got to come up with the story. Let me know now. You can tell whoever you have to tell what you have to tell them, and we go our separate ways. I said, but if you're sticking to this story and I find out it's not true, I'm going to lock you up. No, this is what happened. I said, really? Who the hell are you that they're going to rob you for $470?
What year was this?
This is, back in, I'd say the mid-90s.
So that probably security guard probably hadn't seen $470 in a year.
But we're going into this whole thing, and he said, no, this is the story, and I know he's full. I just know he's full of it. So I was a young-looking detective at the time. Probably didn't look very experienced. I went outside, and there was this other detective who had salt and pepper hair, an older guy, and I said to him, hey, listen, do me a favor. This guy's full of it. Could you go in and speak to him? He says, yeah, no problem. He comes back 20 minutes later, and he said, all right, he's ready to tell you what happened. I said, thanks. I said, so what happened? I lost my paycheck gambling, and this was right before Christmas. It was a few days before Christmas. He says, yeah, I was gambling. I lost my paycheck, and I don't have money for the Christmas presents. I said, all right, I'm just going to type it up and have you sign it, and I want you to write the same statement down in your own handwriting. You sign it, and I'll sign it. And he does. So we sign it, and I read it back to him. Is this true? Yeah. I said, all right, do me a favor, stand up. And he looked at me. He said, stand up and empty your pockets. He said, why? I said, because unlike you, I don't lie. I told you. Tell me now. We go our own separate ways. I
gave him a chance.
I said, you're under arrest for filing false police report. He says, what am I going to tell my wife? I said, well, hopefully it'll be a better story than what you told me.
And I missed a football game.
That's true. And I missed a football game. But he wound up missing Christmas because he spent a week in jail because of that.
No kidding. Ooh.
And let me tell you, when somebody ever says they had duct tape applied to their skin anywhere and you don't look and it looks horrible, you know they're lying.
Yeah.
I worked a case where somebody was duct taped in a armed robbery of their apartment. And I was in the emergency room with the doctor when they were trying to get it off the wrist. It had welded to the skin on the wrist. That's no joke. So the doctor didn't even really know how to do it. So we worked for about a half an hour to get that duct tape off. Because it's so anybody who says that you're tied up with duct tape better look pretty awful.
Yeah, absolutely. You get the residue and everything else.
Oh, it's awful.
Unbelievable. You can't make up some of this stuff. I'd like to remind everyone that if you or someone you know are interested in broadcasting your podcast from the podcast studios, give the Broadcast Beat Studios a call at 954-363-2908. Right now we're going to take another break, and when we return, we're going to close out tonight's show. We'll be back.
If you have a question, comment, or a story you'd like to share, join the conversation by giving the podcast studio a call toll-free at 888-511-COPS. You can also instant message your questions and comments live during the broadcast on our Facebook page.
Put the keys down, Kevin.
But I'm gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
My text to emoji ratio has gotten a little out of hand.
A little?
Yep, I'm definitely gonna call a ride home.
How to know if you should reach out to a friend? Your friend might be
Worried, sad,
Grumpy, angry,
Stressed, weird, rebellious,
anxious, antisocial,
lonely,
sleeping less,
sleeping more,
eating less,
eating more.
Look, there are a lot of things to watch out for, but you know your friend best. So if they're not acting themselves, why not say something? Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org. Awkward.
To talk to our host, call the podcast studio toll-free at 888-511-COPS. That's 888-511-2677. Now back to Rob.
Welcome back. And I know I said we were going to close the show, but we're going to do 2 more stories. And this has been one of the longer shows. And this is episode number 10.
Instant classic.
So you realize that every cop out there that's listening to this show is reliving all his stories.
Yeah, we just
stuff
triggered
we're telling them.
1,000 people.
Yeah, well, shame on all of them for not calling in.
Yeah, call in.
You know, they should have called in. This is our 10th episode.
I thought they would, to be honest with you.
Well, I was hoping. And we're going to take a couple of weeks off after this episode to regroup and work on making the show better and making it run smoother. So we're looking forward to that. But Henry, you've got a story.
Well, we're veering away from the funny for just a minute.
Okay.
But I worked a case with this lady who had kind of a mental breakdown, and her husband was very concerned about her, and we were working with the family for a while. So he called up one night and said that she was missing. She disappeared. So we searched and we looked, and she was gone for about 12 hours. And then about 3 o'clock in the morning, the husband says she's standing in the middle of the street. She's got like a nightgown on. She's just standing in the middle of the street. So what we found out was she had some kind of mental breakdown. She walked across the street to the neighbor's house, went inside, and hid in the bathroom, right? The whole 12 hours,
Right.
and just listened to everybody in the family, right? So while the family's going about their business, there's this lady, and she was sitting twirling her hair. It was all like all a mess. And so she was hiding in their house, and the family didn't even know it. So when we found her in the middle of the street, we put all the pieces together, you know. But I can't imagine going to it'd be like one of those movies. You go to the bathroom and you turn
Open
the mirror on the medicine cabinet. You switch it the wrong way, and there's a face right behind you, you know.
Yeah.
And so she was a very disturbed person and all that, and she got the help that she needed. But I mean, I can't. They had kids, and they had a dog in the house that didn't even bark.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, hiding in the bathroom the whole time.
What happened in my house? I'm in there 3-4 times a day. My wife tells me I should get checked out. I have a problem.
I have nosy dogs. They'll find anything.
You know, going back to my days in the robbery squad. I lived in one precinct. I lived in the 6-1 precinct, and my precinct that I was assigned was in the 6-0, which, if I got stuck in traffic, it probably took me about 7 minutes. And there were good things about working close to home and bad things about working close to home. And one of the good things was the amount of time it took you. The bad thing was, you know, you like to say you don't like to shit where you eat.
Absolutely.
And working close to home, there was always the chance that you could run into somebody that you may have locked up.
That was me. In a small town, that was me. Right. You never know.
So at this point in time, we had taken over the 6-0. I was in the robbery unit. The 61st precinct didn't have one, so we now covered both precincts. Well, I get a case in the 6-1 of a gas station robbery, armed robbery at the gas station. And the gas station happened to be right across the street from the apartment building that I lived in. So my partner and I went in there and we spoke to the victim, the witness, get a description of the perpetrator, and we're driving around a few blocks away and we're doing a canvass, my partner and I. And I see somebody who fits the description. I just get one of these hunches, and I said, I think this is my guy. I go back to the gas station, I pick up the attendant and throw him in the back of the car, and we go back to that area. I said, listen, I want you to pay attention to both sides of the street and let me know if you see anybody. And a few seconds later, his reaction, he said, yeah, that's him, that's the, you know, he's just ballistic, that's him. So I know I have a good idea because of how upset he is. We throw him out of the car, go back, and we grab this kid. And I throw him in the back of the car, we arrest him, and we drive him back to the precinct. I tell him he's under arrest for armed robbery. He said, what did I do? And he didn't seem too upset. I said, you robbed the gas station. He said, what gas station did I rob? And it wasn't though I didn't rob a gas station. He wanted to know what gas station he robbed. So as we're passing the gas station on the way back to the precinct in Corner, I said, you robbed that gas station. He said, why would I rob that gas station? I live across the street from there. So I'm like, you got to be kidding. He said, yeah, I wouldn't rob that gas station. I live right across the street. Why would I rob it? And the next sentence out of his mouth was, well, you know what? I was doing angel dust for a while. Maybe I did rob that gas station. Maybe I did. So we go back to the precinct in Coney Island, and I'm processing the paperwork, and I get a call from downstairs. Says, hey, listen, your perp's sister is downstairs. She wants to speak to the arresting officer. I said, okay, no problem. I go downstairs, and I look at this girl, and she looks at me, and the first words out of her mouth were, I know you. I knew everybody in that family except this kid. His name was David Evangelista. I knew everybody except him because he was in and out of jail. I knew his mother, his other brothers and sisters. My kids went to school with his kids. So I said, all right, you know, I explained what was going on. I said, don't worry, I'll take care of your brother. I'll let you know what's going on. And I did. I treated him like he was one of my own, almost candy bars, sodas. Hey, David, whatever you want.
Smart.
And I take him down, and I treated him golden. A few months later, I get another robbery case at a motel in the 6-1 precinct. And usually the people that went to this motel were prostitutes and junkies and everything else. And I go speak to the manager. He says to me, yeah, listen, we got robbed at gunpoint. And this guy comes here all the time. I said, really? He said, yeah, he even signed in with his real name. I said, let me see the register. And I look, and it says David Evangelista. And I said, are you kidding me? He said, no. I said, all right, I'll be right back. So now I go back to the precinct, and I put a photo array together with the 6 photos, and I come back, and I said, hey, let me know if you recognize anybody. Yeah, that's him. I said, okay. Now I go back to his mother's house, and I'm ringing the doorbell, and I tell her what's going on right away. Well, you're picking on my son. I said, listen to me. The last person in the world I want to arrest is your son, okay? I don't, you're my neighbor. I don't want to arrest your son. I said, but do me a favor, have him turn himself in. I said, because he's known to be armed and dangerous. And if a rookie cop pulls him over, God only knows what will happen. It'll be safer for everybody involved if he just turns himself in.
That's true.
Well, she doesn't cooperate, or she tells him, and he doesn't call me back. And I don't know, a month or two go by. Well, I get a call from detectives in the 6-1 precinct, the regular detectives, and say, hey, listen, we arrested somebody for bank robbery, and you kind of fit the description. Would you come sit in a lineup as one of the fillers? I said, yeah, no problem. So I go to the precinct, and I look at the person I'm going to be sitting in the lineup with, and it's David Evangelista. And I say, you got to be kidding me. So I sit in the lineup. He gets picked out for the bank robbery. Then I arrested him from the motel robbery. It's got to be a month or two later, I get a collect call from Rikers Island in my office. And he says on the phone, hey, Detective Lerner, it's David Evangelista. He said, when I get out of jail, he says, can I come live with you? Because I know you'll take care of me. So I said to him, no, David, I already have 3 inmates of my own. Thank you. Take care. Have a nice day. And never heard from him again.
Isn't that funny, though, how he probably meant it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I treated him, like I said.
Sometimes we have positive, that you don't realize you have positive stuff on people.
And people with emotional problems, you don't want to make them your worst enemy. You know what I mean?
You don't want them living in your house.
Well, I think it's happened to me a few times.
Oh, absolutely. No, I believe me. It's the last thing you want to know. Well, it's about that time again. Henry, I want to thank you for coming on to the podcast, Cobservations, and would love to have you back again in the future.
It's a pleasure. Gary bought me lunch, so that was the only reason I came. And if he buys me lunch again, that'd be great.
Well, let me tell you how this works. When I convinced Gary to come on for the first time, I promised him dinner, okay? And now he's a co-host. Now he's a co-host. So who knows? He brought you dinner. You came on the show. You may have a future here.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
You might take my job. Hey, wait a minute.
Oh, mine. Might take mine.
And we went to the same restaurant.
Yeah. I want to remind everyone you can join our broadcast live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. on the Cobservations Facebook or YouTube channel. If you or someone you know would like to appear as a guest on the show, you can book your appearance on the Cobservations Facebook page, or you can email the show directly at cobservations@yahoo.com. The podcast studio is the newest addition here at Broadcast Beat Studios and is available for other projects. So if you're interested in broadcasting your podcast, give the Broadcast Beat Studios a call at 954-363-2908. As with the end of every episode where we honor the lives of our fallen brothers and sisters, tonight we honor one of our own, Broward County Deputy Sheriff Christopher Allen Schaub. Deputy Sheriff Chris Schaub was killed in a motorcycle accident at the intersection of West McNabb Road and North Andrews Avenue in Pompano. It is believed that Deputy Schaub was attempting to catch up to another vehicle to perform a traffic stop and did not see an approaching car as he made a left-hand turn. He was flown to Broward Health Medical Center, where he succumbed to his injuries approximately 4 hours later. Deputy Schaub had served with the Broward County Sheriff's Office for 22 years. He is survived by his son and his daughter. His son also serves as a deputy with this agency. Thank you for tuning in. Keep checking our Fans of the Cobservations page and Cobservations podcast page for upcoming episodes. Until then, stay safe and God bless. Gary, it's been a pleasure doing this with you. Henry, thank you again. And hopefully we'll see you soon. God bless everybody.